Hi, I'm Kirk DeKalb. I wanted to show you how to build a trap using the mechanism that we sell. This is called a support mechanism. It's got a trigger that's made with a 330 Conibear trigger. You can use a variety of different triggers. The one that we normally use is a 2-bolt trigger that you can make, and you can look on my YouTube channel and Kirk DeKalb channel on YouTube and see how to make the triggers with the trigger wires and like that. What I'll do is I'll show you how the trap works, and then I'll show you how we go about making the different parts. The trap has a mechanism that fits in the center. It's supported by a bolt, and this bolt supports a Conibear trigger that's in the center. To set the mechanism, you hold this up right here, and this is called the back. Push that down where it sets it. Then you set either end. You can set the back end. On this particular trap, we have the short springs, the 3-inch stainless steel springs, and the push rods. Push rods are about 3 3/8 inches long from here to here with a 3/8 nut in it. To set it, put that in the little slot. Then you power it, you pull this down and put it under the bar. Now this is using the short spring. The long spring trap is just on that trap over there. You have to put a piece of 1/2-inch flat bar, 1/8-inch flat bar here, piece of 1/8-inch flat bar here. It allows this to be out a little bit further because of the way the push rods are made. It has to have that gap or the additional at least 1/8 of an inch on the back of this frame right here. Then we come over and we're going to set this other door. If you notice, it's got if you can zoom in real close. This causes the tension to be less on the trigger itself. This tip up right here, it's been ground down where it sits more flat upon the little 4-inch rest right there. And you want to be sure and grind this down on this end, and this should be ground down on this end. You don't want this to be any longer than 5 inches on a 30-inch trap. It can't be any shorter than 5 inches, excuse me, because it needs to be about 5 inches long. This here is a 36-inch long trap, so that the tip up on the 36-inch needs to be about 6 inches long. And we're going to pick the door up. You want to line these where these aren't in line, don't interfere with the door coming up. So we just turn it to where they don't interfere. Then you just pick the trap door up, put this piece and set it on. If you can see real close right here, you set this sits here and this sits here. Then we set the springs. Now this particular trap was one of the first ones that I did, and it's got 6 springs on it, but you don't want 6 springs on it. It's too tight, it makes it too tough. Not good for the mechanism. No more than 4 springs, short springs on the trap. The animal comes in and hits the wire trigger. If you'll notice this trigger, I've got it where it just wiggles just a little bit. It makes it to where the animal's not afraid to hit it when he goes against it. It's no hardly any force at all. Just take it. He hits the trigger, pushes the trigger forward, fires the trap. As you can see, there's quite a lot of speed there. The trap main thing with the trap has 2 1/4-inch bars that come right down 1 inch over from center. Each bar is right down through the center of the trap. And that's where you mount all the different parts and pieces that go along. The support mechanism is supported by this 5/16 bolt, and it rests on a 7/16 nut with a 3/8 piece of 1/2-inch long 3/8 piece of rod welded on the bottom of it. So it sits up, everything sits up the same distance apart. For instance, here you've got a 3/8-inch rod with a 7/16 bolt that sits on top of it. So that same way here, the 3/8 rod with a 7/16 nut sit right in the middle. You can tell if it's in the middle when you set it. You can run a 5/16 bar along it, make sure that it all is straight when you build the trap. One of the things, what you do is you build the frame the frame on the 12 by 12 trap, you want the 1/4 inch coal roll that you make the frame of the trap with, this frame here, the main trap body of the trap. You want it to be, the frame to be 1/16 of an inch less than in length and width than what it actually is. In other words, you want this to be 12 and 15/16 across and 12 and 15/16 down. If it was the trap like this one, it'd be 12 and 15/16 across, because this trap is, make it 14 and 7/16. This trap is 14 inches wide. And then you want it to be 1/16 of an inch shorter than the 17 inches that this is tall. What you want to do when you make the frame, before you put the wire on the trap, pull this up. If you'll notice, there are 3 nuts right here. When you make the frame, cut your either this side or this side with a hand grinder with a cutting blade. Cut it right there, and then push it out just a little bit with your fingers, and then slide a 3/8 inch nut on it. To put the tip up on there, you want the tip up to be 8 or 9 inches long, because then you can come in. I'm right-handed, but you can come in and hold this with your left hand. Hold it down on the back side. Be sure and grind this off flat right here, and tack weld the tip up. Just tack it a little bit there and a little bit there, and push this nut over to it and tack it, and leave just enough gap between this nut and this nut where it can't see how far it can move. It can only move that far. It can't go any further that way or any further that way. You want it to be just like that. Then after you get the frame set up and made on both ends, then what you want to do is put your pieces on to the center. But even before then, if you'll notice, this is set up as a truss. This is 12 inches across. It would actually be a 1/16 less than the 12 inches across here, right here. And you put it, use a 7/16 nut act as a truss to give you a gap. Mount this end on the bottom side, on the back side of this nut, this rod right here, and make it look just like this. Actually, this actually should be a little closer right here, so it won't bend or distort the tip up as it works. As I said before, the distance from the frame to the other side should be 12 and 5/16. The distance of the door, and once it sits in the frame, for instance, this particular door, it's a little bit higher than this right here. In other words, it's 12 1/4 long, and the width on the door should be 11 7/8. It could be just a hair more, but it should be 11 7/8 inches. The tip up right here, where the tip up goes, should be centered on 1 1/4 or 1 1/8, either one, not any shorter than that. And then when you measure down from the top, it should actually be a little higher than this one. Should be about 10 and 1/4 inches centered to that cross bolt. That's what keeps the door from coming open once it shuts, and like that, it'll lock shut. Okay, the trap to make the frame. To make the frame that goes down here in this tip up, what we've done is I took a piece of 2-inch angle, or you can use 1.5 inch angle, about 1/8 inches thick, and you want to set it. If you're going, you want to set it so that. Let me get it right here. There we go. Set it to where you want to draw a line with the square to where you can run either the corner of this or set it in and pop a line across it here. And then you set that frame in here like this. Right, line it up with the edge of the table or whatever line you've got drawn. And take a pair of vice grips and grip that together. That holds it perfectly square. Then you measure over from the end, either that end or this end, to find the center. Then go over 1 inch, or 1 inch and 1 inch. It'll be 2 inches center of the rod on the 2 inch mark that you made, or 1 inch from one side to the other. That's what gives you this mark across through here. And you just, all you do is weld it. If it's a 30-inch trap, it should be 29 7/16 rod comes out through here. Another one, 29 7/16. For instance, here, from here back here, 29 7/16. I've got 4 rods here because if you're going to use it for beaver, the beaver weighs 50, 60 pounds that you can catch in this little trap, and it helps support the beavers when you carry them. So I don't forget. Thinking about it. If you're a trapper and you don't have a lot of tools and equipment, then basically what you have is a ring tool and rings. You want to use red handle pliers. You can get the tools and the rings from Klubertant's Equipment Company in Wisconsin. This is 1 inch ring, heavy. I call them heavy rings because they're, I think they're like 9 gauge rings. This is a 7/8 inch ring here. You use them in the not so heavy. Some places don't have to be as strong. But what you may want to do, if you've got a seam across here and all you've got is clip pins, that's not going to hold it. So what you can do is weld a rod where it would be, I'll go all the way across here and then use your rings and ring it to where the seam is. You wouldn't really need to do it on the other side. It's just if you use regular cage clips, it's not going to hold it like it would if you had a ring gun or had the tools that you needed to hold that seam together. Show you the way the trap works. There again, this is what you get. This is the mechanism that you get in the mail, what you order. It comes with a firing spring. This is a firing spring. And when you get the mechanism, you only want to hand tighten this long bolt, the cross bolt to the center. This here, you just want to tighten it to where the threads, hold it tight where it won't come off. Same way here with this, you want this to just tight enough to where it won't spin. This right here, you don't want it any tighter than that. Let me show you. To make, let me just take it apart. See it. This is the firing rod, firing system in the trap. This is the firing spring. You get that with your mechanism when you get it. It's a stainless steel spring. And what you do is you can run, it just comes off. That's the rod. It's got a little hook on it that holds that piece that's down there, that holds it. And what happens when the trap fires, it pulls back and allows the piece to fall and the door to go down. To make this to where you want to set this rod, what you do is you take your mechanism, lay it on the table, take you slide a 3/8 inch nut, that's a 3/8 inch nut, onto the piece and bend it down, lock it in place. And then slide your 3/8 inch nut up there and tack weld it right there. That's what makes the base right here. This piece here, what you do with it, to make it, you just stick a piece of rod in there, slide it all the way back, and you slide a 3/8 nut on there, and you mark where it goes by just should be 2 3/8 inches from this point here. Let's see it, from this point here to this point here, and you weld that nut, just tack weld it on there. Then you take it off, put the spring on. And set it in place. I'll go ahead and try and get it back on here. It's a lot easier if you take the That goes into place and drop it down. Then you want to put the push rod or the firing rod, excuse me. Set the spring on there. Bring this back. Slide it down and slide it in place just like that. So you're ready to go again. The trigger, if you want to change the trigger, you just unbolt the nut right here. Don't tighten it other than just hand tight when you're trapping, so you don't have to have a pair of pliers. That way you can just have a trigger in the back pocket and change it and don't have to have a pair of pliers. Now, giving dimensions. Or I said, this is a push rod. You need to be 3 3/4 from here to here. And you can see here, it is from the outside of the nut to the outside nut, maybe 3 1/2, but it should be about 3 1/4. Just use 3/8 inch nut. Now this trap over here is a long spring trap. And this one's got 18-inch springs on it. But you don't need them that long. The 10-inch spring work real well. To give you an idea how fast it is, fire the trap. It's fast. To make it, if you put the 10-inch or the 9-inch spring on the door, as you're going to use instead of the push rods here, use a 9-inch spring. You want to slide your 9-inch spring on, and you want to build your push rods this way. This one here is 2 inches, but you want to go 2 1/2 inches from the top to the bottom of this 3/8 inch nut. The length of from the top down to the bottom here should be about 4 1/4 inches. And you want to put a little 1/4 inch cold roll, a little piece of it right here to catch the door on, just like this, about 4 inches down, about 3 7/8 inches down from the top down to right here. Should be the top of this here. And the rod should look real similar to this. It should be about 2 1/2 inches from here to here, but one solid piece that comes down, a total of 4 1/4 inches with a little piece of 1/4 inch cold roll right here on it. Now, if you can see, try and fix this trap where we can see it better, where you can tell how to put everything. Okay. You come around here, take the door off. Okay, on the tip up, if you go from the front to the back, the tip up needs to be here at about 5 inches, 4 3/4. This 1/4 inch cold roll right here, piece goes across 4 1/4. This next piece should be 5 1/4 that this piece here rests on. And that piece is going to be adjustable that's behind it. It's going to be about 6 3/4. What it's going to be this piece here. This piece here is going to be about 5 1/4. Now from the front of the trap to this rod right here should be 8 1/2 inches. And this is a 7/16 nut that's welded on top of that 3/8 inch rod. It's a 3/8 inch cold roll rod. There again, you have 3/8 inch, half inch long, 3/8 inch cold roll that the 7/16 nut is welded on. And that's welded dead center of the trap. You can put it dead center, you can do it whichever way you want. You just have to change the length of your firing rods. And then come from this side, you want to come 5 inches long on the tip up, or 4 3/4, no more. You really don't need to be any shorter than 5 inches, even if you have to move this over a little bit. The next one should be 5 1/2 for this bar here. The next one should be 6 inches for this bar here. Then the tip up, or the piece holding it should be about 6 1/2 inches from the front to here. This is a 3/8 inch rod again with a 7/16 nut welded onto it. Okay. When you build the door, when you make the frame, the distance from here to here on a 12-inch trap is 16 inches. There again, if you're using the long springs, you want to put an piece of half-inch angle, or excuse me, half-inch flat bar, and then weld this rod to it so it gives it another 1/8 of an inch out, or closer in towards the trap. When you build your frame, you want to make sure your frame is exactly square from one side to the other. And this piece here should be 12, and this trap 12 and 5/16. This should be 12 and 5/16. You just want it to be square. On a 12-inch trap, you only need to weld a 3/8 inch nut 1.5 inches down from the frame of the trap, not from the frame of the door, but the frame of the trap. 1.5 inches up from the frame of the trap on this side. You want to center it on the bar. When it comes time to weld the trap, before you put the wire on there, you have your frame and just hold it by hand with your hands and tack it. Come over here, hold it with your hand and tack it, and tack it, and tack it. And just, you don't want to put too much weld on it, but just enough to hold everything where it should be tight. When you build you'll notice right here on the frame on the door, you use a 1/2 inch flat bar that comes down with a 1/2 inch angle. What you do is you actually lay the 1/2 inch angle down on the floor of the table, on the top of the table. Lay your flat bar on top of it and weld the edge of it. You don't want to do too many welds. It gets the bar too hot and the bar will bend. Tip up here should be about 4 3/4 to 5 inches, no shorter than that, 5 inches long. You want to be sure you grind this down where it's flat on the bottom. This piece right here, the actual dimensions on it is 2.5 inches with 1.5 inch long 1/2 inch bar on the piece that gives it support and brings it up is a 3/8 inch nut. Right here you got a 1/4 inch welded to a 3/8 inch little piece of 3/8 inch nut. This 1/2 inch angle iron is sitting right on top of it. You want it to, if you can see, I used a 5/16 on there, and if you can see it's not quite up to where it needs to be. If you use a 3/8 inch spacer right here and that this 1/2 inch bar sits on, it's going to be perfectly level in line and straight line. Over here, this piece right here is about 4 inches long from here, the outside of that round bar, to the back of where it makes a bend. And you just, if you can see it, can you see it very good? Exactly. Can you zoom in right here?
Yes, sir, I'm right here.
Can you see how this is made? Maybe
Yes, sir, I can see it.
keep on zooming in.
Yep.
See how that tips up like that?
Mm.
Then that pushes in place. Can you see it okay? Okay. Here's what your compression spring looks like. The reason that the compression spring is made like it is closer together than a regular spring. What we found is that coons and whatever animal it would be, would get their nails in that spring and be able to tear the spring up. The spring is purposely made the way that it is so it can't be torn up by the animal. So far, I don't know of ever the spring getting torn up or it had to be replaced. That trap is 13 years old. There again, I use this 3/8 inch key stock. You use it to put in there to make your frame, but you can also put your frame in there. If your frame gets bent, say it's bent like this, what you can do is you can put your key stock in there, put your put it in and put your wedge of wood between it and hit it with it and it straightens it up. But you shouldn't have to do that if the trap's made properly. Should last you a lifetime without having that problem. Trying to think of anything that I've forgotten. One thing you want to be sure and use is the crescent pliers. They'll cut your wire on top and where you need to have a gap. Here, 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 and here. You can purchase it from Sears or from Lowe's or I think Home Depot may have them. They used to have them. I don't know whether they do or not, but you may have to order them offline, but it's called a crescent pliers. But you can snip it real quick and not wear your fingers and hands out. I can't think of anything right now much. The trap, I recommend if you got the mechanism from me, or from Keith Winkler, but starting first, that you build a trap like this first, then go to a more harder to make trap. Like, for instance, we said, this is the 36-inch long trap here, that's 6 inches longer than this one. You might want to make all your traps 36 inches instead of 30, just depending on how big animal you're trying to catch. But if you'll notice on this one, this here is 6 inches long. So everything's just a little bit longer than on this trap. It's real important to have, you can have more pressure on this trap and it fire simply because your tip rods and like that, you've got more of a distance where it relays the pressure off the trap. This particular trap, one of the things that you can do with a small 3-inch wire is you make a door release. Put birds in there on the bottom, run your bar all the way across, about 6-7 inches up, and close this. To close it, you just pick this bar up, slide it back down. If you want to replace the spring, you can actually put this on the back of the trap to hold the door down if you want to get access to it. Just pick this up, and see how it comes out. So easy to put in and take out. There we go. And this just comes up. Goes in place. There we go. Bird can't get out. One of the things that you want to do is the gap. If you build a trap like this, you want the gap at the bottom to be no more than 3/4 of an inch from one bar to the other. That keeps the birds from getting out and allows the snake to get in. But the snake, where it hit the bird, he can get in, but he can't get out. So you could catch him if you needed to. That's how you build basically how you build the guillotine door trap. If you want to build the trap without a power door, you want to build it without power, just run you a firing rod right here across like this, only down here closer. You stick it out and it holds the door open. When it fires, it'll come back and release the door, and the door will go down as a gravity door trap. You have to have a trap with power doors to be short, this short, or even that short. That's too short if you have gravity doors. If you have power doors, they can't beat the trap. Can't beat the door. Thank you. I'm Kirk D. Cowden. And if you need to order one, don't forget you can get it from Keith Winkler at Sterling Fur Company in Ohio. Thank you.